I think initially we were a little bit anxious ourselves about going to panel. It sounded quite scary, but it wasn't at all. It was just a really friendly chit chat with a group of people around a table. It was more of a celebration really of us being there and of us, wanting to become foster carers. The County Council offer a fair rate of pay, so we get paid dependent on our level of experience. So after you've done it for a while, then your level of pay will go up based on your experience and level of training that you've done. We've also got a network hub, which is a foster carer support group, and it's just an informal get-together. We feel so valued as a foster carer for Nottinghamshire County Council. Everyone's so caring and wants what's best for you as a family. The matching process is really careful, so they listen to our needs and, they would never think of placing a child that wouldn't fit in our environment. As a foster family, we try and just make it everyday, normal life, try and bring some stability and love to that child that's staying with us and give them experiences that perhaps they've not experienced before. We love going out on day trips together, and for example today we've gone pony trekking. Nottinghamshire's a great place to foster because we've got so much on our doorstep. There's so much that we can do. I feel really lucky that we're able to foster here.
We're about to go live. Morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Transport and Environment Committee, and welcome to those who are watching on YouTube as well. You're all very welcome. If I could ask you, and I've done it again, please to switch your phones off or put them on silent. Thank you very much indeed. So let's continue straight away with the agenda. And item 1, minutes of the meeting held on 9th of February. May I sign those as a true and correct record? All those in favour? Anybody against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Item 2, any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chairman, we've got apologies from Councillor John Wilmot, who's on other council business, and Councillor David Martin is substituting today, and also just would take the opportunity to note a change of membership as well, in that Councillor Garner is now a member of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and yeah, welcome to Councillor Garner. You're very welcome, and welcome to Councillor Martin as well. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any, first of all, disclosable pecuniary interests? No. Are there any private interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary? No. Okay, thank you for that. So let's move straight on to the main items then. Item 4, the Transport and Environment Performance Report. And I think, Mr. Higton, would you like to start us off, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a brief introduction from me. Members will be familiar with this report, both in terms of content and format by now. Performance for Q3 of the current financial year for the place-related services that fall under the remit of this committee. There's a narrative contained in the main body of the report, and both appendices cover off both our performance in respect of the services under this committee, and also provide a financial update as well in terms of budget spend for the current year. More than happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much indeed, and yes, it does represent the continuing hard work. I will move the recommendation in paragraph 24 of page 12 that we endorse the outcomes.
I'm very happy to second that formally, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are you reserving the right to speak, are you? Yeah, thank you. Right, Councillor Hollis.
You got to love Councillor Ogle's casualness all the times. I love it. I modelled myself on you, Councillor Ogle, sometimes, and it's good to see. Well, no, anyway, Chairman, I think, obviously reading this report and having spoken to various members of the fastest growing political movement in Nottinghamshire, the Independent Alliance, including councillors like John Wilmot from Hucknall, the figures contained within the appendix of the key performance indicators leave this council open to ridicule. To suggest that 98% of A roads are in good condition, not needing maintenance, or 97% of B and C roads, the same, or 75% of unclassified roads are in good condition, would be frankly confusing to residents. As I've said in the some of the highways review panels, if we don't recognise the problem, how do we expect or intend to fix them? Maybe it would be a start if we could stop referring to Via East Midlands as an external agency, as you do again in paragraph 8. Can I ask who undertakes the reviews of our roads and how far back do these figures go? Do they precede storms Dudley, Eunice and Franklin, for example? I don't need any analysis to tell me that our highways are in the worst ever state. But it would be helpful if you could inform us who marks our homework. Paragraph 18 mentions that concessionary fares are forecast to underspend 669,000 due to COVID. At a meeting before Christmas, Councillor John Wilmot and I proposed extending the concessionary fare scheme to all ex-form services, this committee asked a feasibility study to be carried out. Can I ask what process this council has made, and have we any idea of costings for this, and how do we expect future quarterly performance reports to be impacted by this? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. Well, I think what I should turn to officers to ask for the evidence. I mean, the A and B roads, as you are well aware, Councillor Hollis, because during the Highways Review Panel meetings, we talked about A, B roads and unclassified roads, and it was acknowledged then that the A and B roads are in just the condition that you have actually quoted, and it has also been evidenced by various surveys that Nottinghamshire is by no means anywhere near being anything like the worst roads in the country. So, and you know from the outcomes of the Highways Review Panel how much we have now got in place, the improvements to actually work hard to significantly improve the state of the roads in Nottinghamshire. I don't know, Mr. Wood, would you like to just tell us where the figures and the statistics come from?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Clark, and thank you, Councillor Hollis, for your question. The figures in the report come from national indicators, so they're based on national standards. They're not surveys that are undertaken by ourselves. There are surveys that are undertaken by external surveyors that are appointed by ourselves. I don't have the details of the contractors' names, but I can provide that after the meeting. They all have to be nationally accredited, and the A's and B's and C's are based on machine surveys. So they're based on a machine that goes over the roads and takes various measurements. The surveys are done annually, so they were done in the summer, so they are pre any damage that may have occurred following the storm, and they're done to a national standard, and they are accredited on that basis.
Okay, thank you for that. On the concessionary, can anybody help with the concessionary fares, Mr. Wood?
Yeah, so we have started discussions with the bus operators and internally as well with those that support previous members of the armed services to look at the feasibility of that request. And with Councillor Clark's permission, we would bring a report back to a future committee or to be discussed at Cabinet in the future.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mine's not a really big issue. It's paragraph 9. It states that the VIA street lighting teams have achieved a Q3 result of 85.1% of street lighting faults under the control of the Highway Authority, repaired within the response time of 7 days. I know, Mr. Chairman, I've reported quite a few street lighting faults, and I do find the street lighting teams very quick to repair the lights. But the report further states that a decrease from Q2, this indicator is still meeting the requirement target, and improvement is expected in Q4. Obviously this was a COVID impact that impacted the teams on that, but there are no actual figures in the report. So the 85.1% could be 85.1% of 100, 1,000, or what. So it doesn't really give me an analytical data set to work on. So if you could provide that, that would be very helpful, because I do know for a fact that when I report lights, and I regularly do, they do get repaired rather quickly, but there's no data in there to say how many you're doing.
Okay, and Mr. Higton.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Martin. Yeah, we're happy to provide you with the numbers, if you like, that will help you make sense of the percentages.
Okay, any further? Councillor Gowland and Councillor Barney.
Really good to say how much goes into consideration. On the other data, on the financial data, big underspend, big underspend in fares and balance in bus services, and people who know buses are in trouble. Is there no way of helping buses from especially their underspend?
Okay, right. Thanks for that. Firstly, on the waste, as you know, we are now down, heading towards below 5%, which is a heck of a lot better than some other authorities. I happen to have learned that Derbyshire, for instance, they're still around 40% to landfill, which is quite amazing, the difference. And in fact, in a conversation with Veolia only yesterday or the day before, I was saying, yeah, we need to be heading for zero on landfill. So there's still work to be done on that. And yeah, incineration is it's performing heat recovery. So it is something there that ultimately it is recycling the waste. On the sorry, did you indicate? Right, yes. Ms. Higson, on the concessionary, I'm being given duff information here from my left. I'll just do my own thing, I think. Mr. Wood.
Yes, on the concessionary fares, there is a one-off underspend. We're still waiting for the guidance from government on the future of concessionary fares following COVID, so it's not clear whether that will be an underspend in future years. If it is, then we'll be able to use it to support the bus network as it recovers from COVID.
Just as a general note on the bus services, it's a massive challenge anyway, because we have some operators that are ceasing services and some operators that are going out of business, and the county council is doing their level best to try and find ways of still supporting the services as best we can. And I have to say, there are some counties around the country that don't support any bus services anymore. Can you put your mic?
This is the underspend for this year, so presumably this money has now gone back into reserves.
Mr. Wood?
I think that's a question for Nigel Stevenson, who isn't here today. So,
okay, that's something we ought to pick up then. Councillor Barney.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Just delighted by Councillor Martin's comments about street lamps and the speed of repairs. We were actually having a conversation this morning with fellow councillors on our corridor about just that, how quickly street lamps that we report broken are repaired. And so I think it's lovely that we concur, and it'd be great if a message could be taken back to VIA for their speedy resolve in fixing street lamps. The only time they seem to take longer is when Western Power are involved, and they have a 6-week lead time. But other than that, absolutely fantastic.
6 weeks and counting. Right, okay, there's no further comments or questions. Councillor Hollis?
Yeah, just a brief comeback, because I feel like we've had a bit of a loving recently, Councillor Clark, so I feel like I should probably just encourage that a little bit more, in the fact that just a couple of things you've said in this meeting, which I just wanted to pick up on and highlight to you. I don't want to be celebrating mediocrity. You've said it to Councillor Garland with the reply there about the buses, that some councils don't do it, so we do a little bit, so it's okay. We've said that somehow other counties might have worse roads than ours, so that justifies ours. You know, I'd hope that when you are the cabinet member, if in fact you will be the cabinet member, that you'll be a little bit more ambitious than just celebrating the mediocrity, because I think you're better than that. So I hope you have misspoken there, and actually we strive to be the best, not just simply not be the worst. And then the only point, just picking up on Mr. Wood's comments, I mean, again, I've got a lot of respect for you, Gary, you know that, but it just surprised me slightly that you've come to the committee and relying on these headline figures and you don't know who carried out the study. I mean, it shocks me, to be honest with you. And then the second thing is, you really sold Councillor Clark up the river, and to emphasise the point I made originally, you know, it is laughable that residents look at the roads, they don't see 97%, and actually, if we've had 3 major storms and you're allowing Councillor Clark to celebrate the fact that 97% of the roads are in great condition, when actually these are outdated stats carried out by people that we don't know the names of. I don't know who's marking this homework. I'm no more enlightened. But I am concerned that the roads are in far worse condition than the stats that we're peddling on the 23rd of March 2022, because it was done 8 months ago, 3 storms later. And I wouldn't want you to be celebrating those figures, Chairman, when actually they're incorrect.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. I think that's rather unfair of you to be attacking officers in the way you are so doing. And I wasn't celebrating mediocrity. I was celebrating the fact that, as you know, because you were part of the improvement panel, that we are striving hard, and it's our ambition to greatly improve standards, and that's evidenced by the outcomes of the Highways Review Panel. So we are well on our way. And finally, I'd thank you very much indeed for your support in a future vote for me as a cabinet member. I'm very grateful that you have declared that you will be supporting me. So thank you very much indeed. So if the vote is a majority of 1, I will have you to thank. Councillor Ogle, very briefly,
well, it's
please.
really good news that Councillor Hollis is supporting you for Cabinet Member Chairman. I'd like to congratulate you that on this relationship. Classified roads, I think we were 3rd in the country, and that's a national classification. So that is not mediocre, but it'd be nice to be first. I appreciate what you're saying. I just remember when I first came here, there was certainly on more than one occasion I was waiting 3 or 4 months to get lights repaired in the villages. So things have improved incrementally. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please. Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you. Right, item 5. It's a very welcome report on the provisional capital and revenue programmes, and well, I've already partly alluded to it. This is great news that this is reflecting partly the outcomes of the Highways Review and the fact that we decided that we would have a 3-year investment program scheduled. So this is reflecting that, and it's reflecting all the good news from the Highways Review Panel. For instance, the additional investment, the doubling of the patching teams, and the move to more permanent repairs rather than the VIFIX, and all the additional investments in the drainage and in the verge maintenance, etc. So really, this is an ambitious capital programme, and it is good news. And I think there may be some further good news contained within an active travel fund as well. But I will ask Mr. Parks to include that good news in presenting this report, please. Oh, sorry. I know that Mr. Parks will probably mention it, but I will just highlight the fact that in the when we come to move the recommendations, if you could just say that top of page 28, the 2 paragraphs that are mentioned should in fact say 36 and 45. So a slight typo there. Right, Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Chairman. As stated, the purpose of this report is to seek committee approval for the provisional highways capital and revenue programmes to be delivered during 22-23, but also, as mentioned by Councillor Clark, following the recommendations by Highways Review Panel. It includes the first multi-year programme for structural maintenance covering the 3 years 2022-23 to 2024-25. As detailed in paragraph 8, the feasibility and investigatory work is still ongoing on a large number of members' requests, and members will be updated on the outcome of their scheme requests through their regular meetings with the senior district highways managers. And with regards to the potential funding, future funding opportunities, specifically paragraph 34, regarding active travel proposals. The Department for Transport has this week confirmed that the County Council has been allocated £4.7 million towards the active travel proposals, which were approved by committee in September 2021. It's proposed that committee will be updated on this funding at May's committee meeting following further conversations with the DFT and its actual Travel England body surrounding that. And as mentioned, obviously the recommendations should refer to paragraphs 36 and 45.
Thank you very much indeed. So I will, with that amendment of the paragraph numbers, I'll move the 6 recommendations at the top of page 28. Have a seconder, please.
I'm delighted to formally second this item, Chairman, and I will reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much indeed. Just to reiterate what Mr. Parks said on paragraph 34 of the Active Travel Fund, or just to ask for sort of reiteration or confirmation. So this is the 4.7 million that's been announced, and the detail will come at a future committee meeting once it's all been worked out, etc. Yep, great, lovely. Okay, Councillor Hollis.
Thank you, Chair. And to be truthful, I'm trying to work out whether this document before us represents one big con trick. Last year, we expressed disappointment that the County Council announced that Ashfield District will receive 1.92 million on 49 schemes on the 2021-22 scheme, whilst other more rural areas receive millions more. So we've looked at the announced schemes, and this year the Ashfield District will receive just just over £1 million on 59 schemes. More schemes, but less money. I say contract, Mr. Chairman, because this year you have announced a 3-year programme. We just looked at the figures contained for 22-23, and they tell a disappointing story. One the Conservatives at County Hall residents hope won't notice. Now I know you will tell me that more revenue funding is available, 5.4 million this year. The money that is meant to deliver traffic management with some chucked towards highways maintenance. Are you telling me that this money will be shared allocated funding on usage of road, not length of road? Yesterday, we had the undignified, pathetic attempt by the Conservative chairman of the Council's Economic Development and Asset Committee to score political points against members of the Independent Alliance opposition group on the County Council. He actually went on tour to Hucknall, to Kirkby and to Sutton in Ashfield. Surely he would have seen for himself the disgraceful, dangerous and yes, third world state of our broken roads and pavements. Now, I'm not going to say that there isn't good things contained within this report. The fact that you finally agreed to resurface Main Street in Huthwaite is welcome. You're not planning on doing this, however, until 24-25. How would this council feel if residents just waited until then to pay their council tax? Of course, we're not going to vote against these plans today, but we're back to the old tactic of chucking a few crumbs out and expecting councillors to be grateful. I'd leave you with one thought today. What would these documents look like this morning if the Conservatives, who, by the way, are responsible for our broken roads and pavements, had put politics to one side and actually voted for our sensible move to turbocharge these efforts? I remind members that we had a fully costed legal plan to spend an extra £15 million on these plans, 2.1 million per district and borough. Instead, you chose a new office block in Limby near Hucknall, and this county and its reputation is poorer for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, you've incorporated quite a lot of outlandish phraseology there, Councillor Hollis. To talk about third world broken roads, I think it is pretty insulting. In terms of when you refer to timescales, then if you recall in the Highways Review panel, one of the outcomes was that by virtue of having a 3-year programme, then people can actually see, rather than having to keep chasing, or when is such and such happening, when is it going to be happening, we're providing that certainty that there it is in the schedule, so people can see when it's going to be done. So it's a question of, I suppose you can't win, can you? We are making that longer term programme and still being criticised for it. And it's very disingenuous to talk about crumbs when this is an ambitious investment programme with that additional £12 million invested as well. So, within the constraints, if we had unlimited funding, of course, more would be done. But I think that within this increased funding and this extra investment, then we are programmed and planned to achieve an awful lot. Right, Councillor Gowland.
Thank you. So first of all, if we're going to be specific, I will very much welcome the upgrade to Cyril Road surfaces, which gives a good impression of being an unmaintained and unadopted road at the moment. But my more general point is about the overall budget. So the integrated transport funding block compared to last year's budget, and it's dropped by £800,000. The roads safety expenditure is frozen, which clearly, given inflation, is probably a cut. But most importantly, although I struggle to totally match the lines up, the main block seems to be being cut. Now, I understand that we're getting the active travel funding investment, but I don't think that was meant to be instead of our own investment. It's meant to be on top of it. So the particular thing I can see is missing is the county council allocation for enhanced rail services. So I wonder if I could have some update on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parks?
In terms of the £800,000 reduction in the integrated transport budget, that's actually £750,000, but rounded up. It was the additional funding which was allocated for a number of years by the previously, which obviously ended last financial year. So that's what it is. The actual allocation from government, you correct say, is still the same. In terms of the enhanced rail services, that funding was allocated to part fund the Nottingham to, I want to say, it's the Castle line anyway, it goes out past Newark, to increase frequencies. When a large number of organisations helped fund that to basically seed fund it effectively to prove that it was a commercial operation, which time when the franchise was renewed, they took on that liability. So there was no need for it to go further forward.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I welcomed the Highways Review Committee, and I thought it was a very thorough and in-depth review, and I welcome the outcome of it, and I'm glad to see that the County Council is taking a different approach. I do think constantly promoting that we've got the best roads in the country is a bit of a hard sell, because the public only see what's under their wheels and suffering the impact of the damage to their vehicles on a frequent basis. And we can only chip away at the mountain, as it were, as we all know. I'm particularly interested in the capability fund, and the reason is because in paragraph 8 it states that in August 21, all county council members were asked to submit their highways priorities for integrated and transport and highways maintenance scheme suggestions, so that these could be considered for inclusion in the future highways programme. And we've analysed that these and compared it to the programme before us, and what it shows that only 34% of those suggestions from members will have been agreed. Whilst I do accept that the report states that more work is to be done, and I'm hoping that funding for that work is going to come from some of this capability fund. And there's a particular reason for that, because in the previous administration, county councillors were allowed to put 3 highways jobs forward, and then 2 infrastructure, like Pelican Crossing, Zebra Crossing, that kind of thing, and that's been reduced to 3. And of course, the opposition were berated for not submitting those in the past, and that's because they said, well, they never got done anyway. So I'm now in a position where we've got a 3-year plan. So I'm hoping that some of this contingency funding is going to be directed towards county councillors' suggestions and members' scheme suggestions, because they are the ones that are on the thoughts of the largest majority of the residents in that area. And that's a particular reason I want to tune that. I'm not criticising what you're doing, I just want you to fine tune it and understand that your county councillors, and you have more than anybody, will have more suggestions than anybody, and they will have to be serviced. I find it very difficult for me to walk along Portland Road in Selston, which has spin-off streets of about, say, 600 residents, equating to a sixth of the village of Selston live off Portland Road in the streets associated with it. And I find it difficult that I put that forward in the members' suggestion schemes for resurfacing, and it's not going to be included in a 3-year programme. How can I deal with that? That's where my criticism will come from, because those residents are shouting and screaming at me to get their road done, and yet time and time again I put it forward, and yet time and time again it falls on deaf ears. So that was my point on that programme. So going on from the Highways Review Committee, I would ask that the County Council looks at that particular issue, if not for me, then for its own county councillors on the Conservative bench and across the whole spectrum, because those residents are the ones that are coming and giving you the grief about that particular road, and they expect you, as their elected representative, to take a particular action forward for them. And if I said to my residents along Portland Road, yeah, it's not going to get done till 26, 27, they'd never elect me again. So, you know, that's a point of consideration. So that's one of them. So on paragraph 19, we talk about the A614, A6097 junction improvements. And if, like the Gadlin access road, the plans go over budget, which they inevitably will, the County Council have already accepted liability for overspend. Do you think any of these projects will be identified as under threat going forward over the, you know, considering inflation and the cost of the project? Paragraph 12 talks about the 3 million a year on the additional patching gangs, which is something I do welcome, because you know I'm not a fan of VFX. I made that quite clear. I have done all the way along. And I welcome the hot box repairs. They've been excellent across Selston Parish. I've had quite a few done. And I know that that's a precursor to micro asphalt, which I'm not a fan of, because the management of the contractors doing micro asphalt is a major issue. It has to be done in the correct manner. So we asked for one patching gang to be based in each borough and district, leaving one to take care, so there'll be 7 patching gangs for each borough and district, and then one to take care of the emergency repairs, which we thought was quite a good way of running it and more fair and equitable. Because although other areas may be larger than Ashfield or Mansfield or Broxtowe, who only make up 30% of the geographical area, their roads, because of the density of population, are perhaps used 3 times as many as roads like those in Rushcliffe, Newark and Sherwood, especially Bassetlaw. So can you give me a reason why you've chosen not to assign patching gangs to a specific area, and you've chosen to use them in the melting pot, as it were? I know that's a bit of a pun when we're talking about tar, but anyway, there you go. So, and I think pumping £15 million extra into the programme is going to make a real difference, but it needs to make a difference where it counts, and we know that's an easy thing to say. It's the easiest thing on the world to stand on the pavement and criticise, and it is, but that's what all of our residents are doing, and we've got to get the best bang for our buck out of everything in every different area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So, yeah, in terms of the members' request that you mentioned, then obviously a lot more was requested than we can fund. However, the caveat is that obviously the officers will do their level best, given the constraints that they've got to check the feasibility. And obviously, if somebody makes a request for a massive project that's going to cost millions, I'll just exaggerate a little bit, but maybe. But obviously, that's not going to be quite so easy to deliver as some more realistic ones. So it's a question of deciding the feasibility and the value for money for it. In terms of the patching gangs, then it's a question of prioritising and getting a schedule and getting it right across the board, and certainly I wouldn't want to say, oh well, no, that patching gang can't go to somewhere else because it's crossing a boundary. It's a question of what is the most efficient in prioritising the projects. In terms of the junction improvements, and thank you for mentioning the Gedling Access Road, which you may have noticed was formally opened yesterday, well, and Monday, and you talked about potential of going over budget. Well, of course, the Gedling Access Road, part of the reason of going over the budget was because of COVID, and as a result of that, extra costs on supplies, materials, and environmental and technical issues. So hopefully with the additional government funding, then the 614 and the 6097, let's hope that COVID doesn't impact upon that as much as it did on the Gedling Access Road. Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I think it might be useful in terms of the member requests that we're intending through the district managers when they meet with you. There'll be some requests that you won't see in this paper in the appendices that we're going to pick up with some of the additional funding. So, for instance, looking at yours, there are some there that may well be picked up by that additional funding, and in the future, in those meetings with the district managers, county councillors will have the opportunity to feed back areas in their patch where it might make sense for some of that structural maintenance to take place. So that local knowledge will be picked up. That valuable local knowledge from county councils will be picked up through that means.
Okay, thank you.
Chair. I think that's a very important thing, because that reciprocation with the highways area manager and the programmes, because obviously they are the most important roads to us in our area. We know those areas across the whole county. I'm not just talking about Ashfield or Broxton or anywhere, but everywhere. And it's a really important reciprocal part of the highways review scheme that the members are listened to, because the members are the ones beating the streets, and the members are the ones that get the flack if they're not done.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Cooch, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Martin. Just picking up your point regarding the distribution of the gangs. So we will have the 8 gangs. They will be distributed across our 4 depots. And as Councillor Clark said, we will be looking to put those gangs where the needs are. So we are putting in place a prioritisation methodology, which will look at the hierarchy, the use of the road, the asset management needs, the feedback from yourself through the district managers, as well as our highways inspector. So there's quite a large remit of information that's feeding into how we prioritise to put those gangs out. But we didn't want to just have them specifically assigned to one particular district. There may be at times where 2 gangs are working in one district because that's what their priorities are. But we will be monitoring that, and we're working with colleagues and part of the client team as a regular review, and getting the feedback from yourself as to how well that's working and what other areas are prioritised.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Guilford.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to be a bit parochial, which
please not too parochial, because this is a high level.
You are, yeah. It's in relation to the type of treatment, Chairman, suggested for one of the roads in my own area. I mean, I've nothing to complain about the ones that have been highlighted. There are both roads that are going to be done are areas which I've highlighted as the main priorities in my patch. So I haven't got a problem with that. It's just in particular on Shepherd's Avenue, Worksop. I mean, there was a survey done, traffic survey done in 2016, and there were 22,000 traffic movements along that road during a 24-hour period, which is a substantial amount of traffic movements flying along that road. And the suggestion is that you micro-asphalt it. I think it needs well, I would say it needs resurfacing, Chairman. It's shot. That road is completely shot. And I know, after speaking to Mr. Patchett, aptly named, he has said that it's on the cusp of either, and I would suggest it actually does need resurfacing rather than micro-asphalt. If you actually drove down that today, my wife took me to the rail station today, Yes, they are on the ball when I report potholes. They get yellowed and filled in as soon as possible. But I can tell you, if you went down it today, you cannot drive in a straight way with it as you normally should. It's that bad, and it's really down to the core. So, and going on the premise of doing things, which is what we've said, doing things right first time, I actually think resurfacing rather than micro asphalt would be better for that particular road, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to congratulate Tom Hollis, if I may. £22 million capital fund, biggest investment into one of the biggest priorities for our residents, repairing our roads, and only Councillor Hollis could put that down as doom and gloom. And what that actually means, the impact that actually is on my Newark East residents, is that it's resurfacing their pavements, resurfacing loads of their roads, installing new, brighter, energy-saving LED lights, and I think that is absolutely to be welcomed. So it's not doom and gloom for my residents, and I want to reassure them on the record that we are investing in one of their biggest priorities. Point 12, paragraph 12 of the report mentions the extra £12 million that this cross-party highways review panel recommended, and I think what that investment is in is, less veer fix, which we all agree isn't good enough, and more patching for long-term permanent repairs. And I think that's great. I just want to clarify that that's not actually included in the capital programme, I believe, and therefore it's open for members, ourselves, to meet with our highways manager, highlight key areas, and get that £12 million invested in our area. So if that's the case, which I believe it is, then the message to us members, Councillor Hollis, is get out there, get reporting the potholes, get working with our highways managers, and let's get that investment in our patches, and let's get the patching gangs in our areas as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and just before I bring the officer in, what you were talking about there is on page 31 of 84, or the first page of the yellow page, and the table at the top, about halfway down, it actually says additional funding, network structural patching, £3 million. That's per annum. So that's for our mathematicians amongst us, 4 times 3 equals the 12 that you were talking about. Mr. Wood or Mr. Higton? Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I think, Councillor Smith, you're correct in that the 12 million is additional funding, and just in terms of the way that funding is going to be spent, if you like, on the network. Obviously, from all of our inspection activity and with the highway managers and district managers and highway inspectors, we've already got locations in mind where we think it would be really good to try and reduce those clusters of VIFIX repairs so that we're in the future not having to go back to them, trying to prevent us doing VIFIX repairs in the future. But that will be blended in with your local knowledge where the local hotspots are for you through the process that I described earlier. So you're correct in that assumption.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, look, I just want to kick off by echoing Councillor Smith and obviously as well Mr. Wood and what he's just said about the reporting of these issues. One of the big things that we set about early on when we were elected as borough councillors was to really get out there and log everything and anything we got our eyes on, any holes, any issues, and make sure that that those things are going to be repaired. It's our responsibility as members, and I was glad to hear Councillor Martin is active in his area and reporting them as well. But it is our responsibility as members to get out there and report these things to ensure this work is done, and that's reflected in the capital programme as well as a result. It's also an opportunity out there, and we've created some fantastic access as well for members of the public to report potholes as well. We've got an app, an Android and iPhone app, as well as you can report them via the info@highwaysengland.co.uk email address. And for those that don't have a phone in terms of a smartphone or even are online, there is a telephone number as well, which is 0300 123 5000, because we have to make sure that this is fully accessible to all members of the public, whether they have the required technology or not. And so I'll be advertising. And if there's one thing I think we should definitely do is get that details out there again on our website to reaffirm those contact information for members of the public if they so wish to report some of the holes that they have in their area. Just a couple of other things. The patching, which I've been incredibly happy to see over the past couple of weeks. My old borough area of Woodthorpe, the area that I actually grew up in, I was driving through there the other day and noticed Longacre Road, which is a very steep road and one that has had issues in the past because it is so steep. And I thought what a fantastic job the patching that had been done on that road was. You know, really sort of professionally done, looked great, and was decent to drive on. You know, and I think a lot of the times it's that experience as a driver where we really, and sometimes I think probably that's why some things don't get reported as well, because most of us are in our cars at the time. We can't sort of pull over, you know, get on an app and report them, which is why I'd back up that by saying to councillors, get out there and walk about, you know, and pick these things up so that you can definitely report them. Because I think, you know, we come across a lot of these things while we're in transit. And finally, oh, actually, no, not quite finally, Chairman. I just want to dive and talk about the street lighting energy saving programme. I mean, we've got to be really proud of this. We've kept out some 89,000 tonnes of carbon as a result of the installation of this programme so far, and some 82,000 LEDs have gone out in our street lanterns. It's great to see we're putting another 2.1 million into this. You know, having already reduced our energy consumption by some 105 million kilowatt hours, you know, that's an incredible achievement, and achieved some 12.6 million in energy savings to date. How much of that 12.6 million has reappeared in our £12 million budget to repair the roads? You know, it's fantastic that we are able to save that money and we can put that money somewhere else. Just moving on to I just want to quick about the flood stuff. Really good to see the investment going into Southall, the 4.5 million, which is going in there, and also the 76 million, which is going in with Severn Trent in Mansfield as well. Fantastic record investment, and we're going to see some phenomenal work there. And I think that will be quite an incredible sight to see once it has been completed. And of course, finally, Gedlin Access Road. Having driven on it twice, Chairman, I'm one up on you already to road test it in the literal sense. I can confirm that you can get from Mapley Top to Burton Joyce in 4 minutes 11 seconds, as timed by my wife yesterday, adhering to all speed limits. Thank you. So we'll put that point in there. So we'll have nobody trying to break my record because I was consistent with my speed limit. So you can just take that as given. And what a pleasurable journey it was to see all of the fantastic amphibian access points along the way, so they can cross safely to their ponds, and also obviously for the badgers as well. And it was good to see how much greening and how much tree planting, some 53,000 trees going into the Gedlin Access Road site as well, which will help mitigate some of that carbon that's emitted from the cars as they drive up and down it. That is a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you weren't contributing to traffic congestion by driving up there twice. Yes, I've only driven there once. Yes. Councillor Barney.
Thank you, Chairman. I apologise, Chairman, because I've referenced these comments in the past at a previous committee, but I do find it both naive and derogatory for other members to feel the need to reference third world highways in reference to talking about our own streets here in Nottinghamshire. I do feel the need I need to pick up on this again, having spent considerable periods of time of my life living in countries who are much less fortunate than ours, and have considerably horrendous roads, and I'm no doubt would be classified potentially as third world. I find it offensive to use that phraseology, and I certainly don't look down on them, and I certainly, as I say, suggest it's naive to do so, because I suggest that members should visit other nations before they use such language and then make an actual real assessment of how good our roads are in comparison to those in nations who are much less fortunate, which is a significant percentage of the world's population. So not to over-celebrate how great our roads are, I completely concur that there are problems and issues, but living in the real world, rather than the first, second or third world, the real world, when I look at this yellow document and the details enclosed, which detail elements of Rushcliffe, mine and Councillor Adair's own patch in Leek and Ruddington, I am actually thoroughly impressed. I haven't got all my wishes and whims catered for in the list of schemes being put forward here, and neither would I expect to. But the things that have been put forward, I'm actually encouraged to the degree of which they have been considered, and the details have been added above and beyond that which I have suggested and Councillor Adair have suggested. And I'd like to thank officers for that care and attention in putting together this programme. And that's not to say the things that are still missing I won't be pressing for as the local ward member, Bateman Road in Eastleigh, which I'd like to see included, Far Lane in Normanton. But as a whole, I would like to congratulate officers who have taken the care and the attention to address the concerns and issues which are paramount in the real world situation we face with limited resources and doing the best job we can to fix our roads. It's also been referenced a couple of times about these 3 storms which have occurred in succession. And again, in the real world, storms do happen. And in the real world, those temporary and short-term emergency repairs must be made. And in light of other comments by other members, every time I have reported after each of those 3 storms, horrible potholes and calluses that have appeared overnight in the roads, I have been astonished at the speed at which VIA have been out and repaired, maybe short term, maybe not fixes we want to see, but have put right immediately, often within 24 hours, every single pothole that I have reported. So rather than just being all doom and gloom and looking at this broad brush in the real world, I would like to congratulate this authority for the extraordinarily good job we are doing on maintaining our first world roads to a high standard and high quality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bahar. Councillor Ogle.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm absolutely delighted that we've got this extra funding, and it's very welcome. And there's also funding for the resurfacing. We've got the surface reinstatement, which is very high quality that I've seen, and I've not just looked in my own patch. I was over at Skegby the other day, and I'm driving around. I'm seeing very high quality reinstatement on what are these very large patches. There's extra money for the drainage there, so it's going up from 500,000 to 800,000, which over the period of this document should reduce the waiting list for drainage, and that should help as well. On the council priorities, it's interesting because I notice in this document that Main Street Leverton is in here, and that was my project 4 years ago, and it's actually been in this document 3 years, but it's never actually been carried out, and it's due to be carried out in 2 weeks. So if you look up on your previous years, Main Street Leverton, you'll see it's been down here, but then I've got Town Street Askham. That was a priority 5 years ago, and that's down in here. So what I would say is patience is a virtue. Well, thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Is it just a clarification?
Spoken, but I'm not going to make any political points. This seemed to come up at full council about the traffic light, the street lights, and in some areas they're too bright, and in some areas they're too dark. And I just wonder if there's a technical issue. I mean, I don't know the details. I just know my area they're definitely brighter than the preceding lights. And I think it was who complained that in your area they're too dark. So I wonder if there's actually a reason for this that could be investigated.
Oh, I don't know. Is it sunglasses or anyway, Mr. Wood?
Happy to take that away, but some of the lights have been converted to LED, so that might be part of it. But I thought they all had. Oh, yeah. Happy to come back to you directly on that.
Oh, right. Councillor Martin, I'm not going to prolong a long debate about brightness of lights.
No, it's about the spatial distances of the street lamp posts on the street. So it's when they were built. Depends what era they were built in. If they were built in the Victorian era, they're further apart.
Right. And you were there then, were you? Yeah. Okay.
I've just withdrawn my application for you as a cabinet member.
oh damn! That's not a majority of 2. It's a majority of 1 now, is it? Oh dear. Right. Okay. Right. Finally, before we go to the recommendation, I think we've got an answer to the question, Mr. Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to answer Councillor Hollis's question slightly earlier on, so we have found the answer to your question as to who the independent provider is of the surveys. The company are called WDM, and they are a company who've been providing independent surveys around the world, in the UK, US, New Zealand, amongst others, for 50 years. And they're also a world leader in the manufacture of road survey vehicles. So it's an independent company. You can be assured that it's not something that we deliver for ourselves. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that. So the recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, top of page 28, which have been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed for that. So we now move on to traffic regulation orders, item 6, page 57, and we have Station Road, Beeston. Mr. Coots.
Thank you, Chairman. Purpose of the report is to consider the objections received in respect of the traffic regulation order for Station Road area in Beeston. Planning permission has been granted to build a new housing development on the north-east side of Station Road. As part of facilitating that development, there is a need to put some restrictions in place. This will involve the removal of 2 existing 20-minute parking bays at the south-eastern extremity of Station Road, and also propose to introduce new double yellow lines on both sides to allow the entire road, the new junction, to be created to serve the new development. During the consultation, 6 responses were received, of which 5 remain outstanding. Details are provided within the report. The local member, Councillor Fall, is supportive of these proposals, and the recommendations are stated on page 60 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move the recommendation then on page 60, as you just said. Item 1, seconder.
You've got a seconder, Chairman. I reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? No. I'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please. Unanimous. Thank you. And another traffic regulation order, page 69, item 7, Beadle House Lane, Newark. Mr. Coots.
Thank you, Chairman. As purpose of the report, to consider the objection received in respect of the traffic regulation order proposed for BD House Lane in Newark. The County Council has received complaints from Newark College regarding obstructions from the current parking patterns, which is causing problems with large delivery vehicles, and also problems for emergency vehicles getting to the college due to the parking under the considered current arrangements. Proposals are put forward to put restrictions in place. During consultation, 4 responses were received. 3 of those expressed support. Response from Newark Town Council is considered to be an outstanding objection, and details are provided within the report. The local member, Councillor Girling, has expressed concern regarding the loss of on-street parking, but supports the proposed restrictions, and the recommendation is as quoted on page 71 of the report.
Thank you. As you say, page 71, recommendation, which I'll move that recommendation. Seconder. Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I support this, but I am concerned about the loss of parking, and that will push into my division on Beacon Hill Road. I put a petition in for a residential parking scheme, and there's a parking survey being carried out. So I'd encourage officers, if we could hurry that up at the same time as delivering that, the problem won't be pushed on to my residents on Beacon Hill Road, which are already overloaded with parking from the college. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I noticed that the local member, Councillor Girling, has expressed sort of similar. Whilst he supports the restrictions, he is also concerned about the loss of on-street parking as well. Right, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please. Is that everybody? Almost everybody. Yes, it is now unanimous. Jolly good. Great. Thank you very much indeed. So we move now to page 75, item 8, responses to petitions. Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. The purpose of the report is to consider the recommended responses for petition issues that were raised at County Council on the 25th of November 21 and the 20th of January 22 meetings, and the recommendation is on page 79 of the report.
Thank you very much indeed for that. The recommendations are at the bottom of page 79. Before I move the recommendations, I do just want to refer to petition F on page 77, which relates to Digby Avenue, Mapperley. I have received some representations regarding that, and I do know the road myself as well, and I think that is worthy of further investigation and a further survey, given the fact that I think the previous survey was done, I believe, during perhaps more pronounced COVID times, and I think this is worthy of further investigation and consideration. So as I move the recommendation, I'd just like to have that caveat. Yes, Mr. Smith's pointing out it does say carry out an assessment, but it says alternative options, but I would like to still ensure that a re-investigation of a crossing is included in those options as well.
So, Chairman, I will second it and under your
well,
caveat.
Right. Okay. I'll move it formally so that you can now second it. Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. Did you indicate you wanted to? No. Okay. Councillor Guilfoyle.
To some extent, Chairman, it's still on my thunder. Both local members have been in touch with me to speak on their behalf, Chairman. Councillor Clark and Councillor Welch, who really support a zebra crossing for that particular area. They're saying that there are circumstances in relation to the fact that there is a nursery school, an infant school and a junior school, a school with special needs and a multi-use game area and a care home, all in close proximity to that area, and that this road is used very highly by children. And in fact, the original request didn't come from adults, it actually came from children from within the school. And I know that schools, there's correspondence I believe that officers have got in that relates to the head teachers of the schools writing saying that they would support a crossing in this particular area, that it is much needed. Clearly you've said a traffic survey was done in September, and obviously people are saying is, well, you've done one survey, can we get on and put the road in? Put the crossing in as opposed to do another survey, but I understand what why you're suggesting that, and I think that the members are sort of saying is that although you know the area, would you be prepared to meet them on site, Chairman, and look at the area at an appropriate time? Both Councillor Clark and Councillor Welsh are requesting if you would do a site visit with them to look at the area in particular, and also that a full report be prepared in relation to this area. So I would hope that you could accede to their request to meet them on site as well, Chairman.
Okay, right. Yes, thanks for that. Mr. Parks, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I'd just like to confirm that obviously formal crossing is still definitely on the cards, and we acknowledge that the previous survey was probably done at a time when there was definitely less traffic, if not less pupils going to and from school as well, which is why we're definitely going to undertake a further pedestrian vehicle survey at that location. The other carry out the assessment of the site was more to do just in case, for example, it may not be feasible to actually fit what a formal crossing in. So we look at various alternatives as well. It'd probably be worthwhile waiting until we've got the survey results if you were to have any meetings, so that we've got a better idea what might be possible at the location before having those conversations. It'd be a more probably productive meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever is most expeditious in addressing it. Fine. Great. Okay. Councillor Martin. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I refer to is it petition A? A request for a traffic reform, traffic regulation order, is that on Reform Street and Cuts Row. So basically, there's not many signatures, there's not many people live on there. It's only what was originally a cart track, so it's now an adopted highway street called Reform Street. and you go 90 degrees at the top, and you can come across Cuts Row, and that would bring residents out onto Fox Street, Annesley. This is not going to create a rat run. It's not going to create any speeding problems at all. What the problem is the houses along Cuts Row have only got a 3-foot pavement and then about less than a 2-metre track in front of their house. And when they park the cars up there, the dustbin lorries and all the delivery lorries are just constantly reversing back when there is a very viable route just at the top across Cuts Row, which if it was opened up would take them out onto Fox Street. So I don't think it's been considered in the manner that it was intended to be. So I'd like to ask for a review of that, or I propose that you do a review of that. Tom, will you second that?
Right. Well, it does say to address the concerns raised by petition introduction. I mean, it does talk about parking restrictions.
Yeah, I don't think it was submitted with the intention of increasing parking restrictions. It was intended to make the flow of traffic easier, and that's what's not been taken on board.
Mr. Wood?
What we can do with committee's permission is to arrange for a conversation between either yourself or the County Councillor Williamson and the local district manager and one of the engineering staff in VIA, just to look at what's been proposed there and obviously the views you've just expressed.
Right. Okay. We can add that on then. Is it in relation to this, Councillor Hollis?
In relation to this, I think, well, just in a similar way to what you did, I believe, with Petition F, I think obviously what Councillor Martin's formally requested there is that we actually review the highways movements. So not simply dismiss the highways movements and turn to other arrangements, which I believe parking, whatever was mentioned. So obviously I want to second Councillor Martin's proposal that we edit the recommendations and include that Petition A is formally looked at for traffic movement survey, whether it be one-way system or the such, because we're certainly not satisfied with the outcome of the response to the lead petitioner. So I'll second Councillor Martin's proposal with that additional recommendation, as you've added an extra recommendation.
No, I mean, it wasn't actually an extra recommendation I added. I just was emphasising the assessment that officers are going to carry out to determine alternative options and to make sure that the formal crossing was part of the alternative options. But I think the best way of dealing with this is to include the additional requests that Mr. Wood, as he's suggested, has those conversations with the local member and to deal with it in that way.
Thank you, Chair.
So we'll just proceed procedurally, Chairman. Obviously, we've got a move and a seconded on an amendment. So where do we go from here? Because I'm not satisfied with that. As much as I can take you in good faith, we've got a proposal on the table that I'd like to vote on.
We could put it, we can put it to the vote, but in my view, I think in the interest of expediency, it would be far better to have had that conversation. But
absolutely no rush, Mr. Chairman.
We've not received it in writing. We need to do that. We need to do all of the other procedural. So if we can make a commitment to do it.
Well, so what's stopping us doing those things? I'm confused. Well, if we could, there's a proposal on the table. I'd like to vote on.
Right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I prefer to have those that separate conversation. So if I put it to the vote as to who wants to accept that formal proposal, then
Chairman, can we just ask from the floor? Can we ask him to withdraw that proposal and second it, because it's going to be dealt with, should be dealt with fairly efficiently by the officers. And if you're still not happy, then well, that's the time to come back and create, a task for something like this. I would have thought. So can I ask you to withdraw that and proceed as the chairman requests?
Right, we're getting involved in all sorts of procedural matters here where I'm advised that we need to have it all in writing and goodness knows what. I Can I just ask you, Councillor Hollis, that take it in good faith that we commit to having that conversation, just like the other one, so that we can proceed with it. Councillor Martin, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to talk to the officer.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to talk on B and F, if I may. Petition B, I've got some great news. It says, paragraph 7 says the scheme is currently in consultation. It's done. The 30-mile-an-hour speed signs are there. I've knocked on everyone's door on those Barnby Crossing cottages, and they're really grateful. And I think that's the great thing about petitions, is it's power to the people that we represent. They get a local issue, they give it to us councillors, and this council's listened and delivered. So I'd like to thank every officer involved in that. But paragraph 7 isn't technically true, because the scheme has been delivered and is done, live. So no speeding down there, Councillor Adams. It will take you longer than 8 minutes or 4 minutes to get through there. Petition F, totally agree with you, Chairman. You know, we all have procedures and processes we have to follow, and they have to meet limits. But I think if we can, as a council, look beyond those, take into account, as Councillor Guilfoyle has explained, there's 3 schools on Digby Avenue. 2 of the schools, Westdale Infants and Westdale Junior, have to cross the road to get into the multi-use games area, which is the school resource between the hours of 9 AM and 3:30. Westdale Infant School don't actually use it, which I think is sad. Because they can't get their infant children back over the road quick enough to get back to the facilities in the school if and when that's required. And I think that's sad. So anything we can do as a council to allow access to that amenity is welcome. I'd also like to pay huge credit to the Member of Parliament, Tom Randall, who has worked with the residents on this, written to all the residents, gone out and got signatures with the residents. I think the residents have done a great job. I think the Member of Parliament has supported them fantastically, and it's great to hear that only now are the divisional members on board, but that's great as well. So I think we need to just look past the normal processes that we follow and try and deliver this crossing if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, no more speakers. So the recommendation has been moved and seconded with those 2 additional emphasising of further discussion and investigations. So all those in favour, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All those against? Abstentions? People not voting at all? Right, okay. So there were 10 in favour. Right, page 81, item 9, the work programme. Who's Mr. Smith?
I don't have a great deal to add, Mr. Chairman. Happy to take comments from members for what is the 4th of May committee or beyond.
Okay, any, sorry, I'll move the recommendation that we agree the work programme. Any comments, questions? No, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. That comes to the end of the meeting, so thank you everyone. I'll declare the meeting closed.